overlooking the River Foyle, just beyond the Craigavon Bridge, is one of the oldest parts of Derry, the streets that cluster around St Columbs Cathedral. Now, if this were in any other city in Europe, or even in America for that matter, this would be one of the smart places to live. The old houses would be renovated, there'd be antique shops and art galleries and cafes. But the story of the fountain area is very different. As Derry has picked itself up and prepares to forge ahead into the future, the fountain has been sadly neglected. The point is, can it catch up? Well, let's find out.
The people here have a word to say, and they'll say it now in their quiet way. From field and shore, from the factory floor, they speak below, the gunman's roar, and the talk is of work, of hopes and fears, the age-old wisdom and the young one's dreams. And there are voices calling from minds and hearts, from our places apart. And there are voices calling from minds and hearts, from our places apart.
The Fountain Estate is small, only a few streets really, but an almost totally Protestant enclave within the old city walls. Since the Troubles began in the late 60s, almost two-thirds of the Protestant population on the city side of the river has moved to the waterside and even further afield. Many felt they were no longer welcome, but some of those who lived in the Fountain struggled to stay on. Back in the 17th century, the river was the main source of jobs here. People from the Fountain and its surrounding areas were traditionally employed as boatmen, fishermen and boat builders. But those days have long gone. Now levels of unemployment are high. Many of the attractive old terraced houses were demolished in the 60s to be replaced by what is now a crumbling concrete jungle. There are no play areas for the children. The Fountain's recent history is one of decay and lack of proper investment.
I've lived on the Fountain Estate all my life. It was a marvellous place to grow up in. It was a very caring place whenever I was growing up. But the houses that they pulled down and to build these concrete boxes, they took the spirit out of the Fountain whenever they built this type of house. Well, to me, the only improvement that I think that they could do would to be bulldoze the whole area and start again. The people were fiercely protective of their culture, and I think slightly resented outsiders coming in. It has changed an awful lot once the redevelopment started and a lot of the older residents started moving out of the area. I would say the area has really lost its character. It doesn't have the same character as it had.
The area is getting a reputation which we never had. Years ago, people were actually proud to say they lived in the Fountain. Now you say you come from the Fountain and they go, you live over there. It's the reputation that we've had seems to have brought the estate downhill over the last 3 or 4 years. People say they wouldn't park their cars in the estate. They wouldn't come to the estate. They wouldn't live in the estate. Ordinary, decent families. They point most of all directly to, first of all, the type of accommodation that we have in the area. Basically flats and maisonettes, which are typically not really any good for families. The Fountain Estate, like all, dare I say, Protestant districts in the city, has been left out. The so-called city council have said that they show no difference. One has to look at this area to see the amenities that we have and the amenities that are even across the wall. And places like Craigavon, Shantallow, Carnhill, and the amenities that they're getting and what we're getting, there's nothing.
During the worst of the 70s disturbances, the battle-scarred facade of First Derry Presbyterian Church spoke volumes about the kind of problems the people of the Fountain had to cope with. Up until a couple of years ago, it was very much a building under siege from the constant threat of petrol bombs and worse. In the darker days of the 70s, the doors and windows of this church were boarded up and barred for protection. Well, it's putting on a braver face today. New doors, new windows, symbol of a more optimistic outlook. But the fact that the congregation has almost trebled in the last few years is due in no small part to a man of faith with a sense of purpose, their minister, the Reverend David Latimer. But does this transformation in the fortunes of First Derry Presbyterian hold out any hope for the Fountain Estate itself? David Latimer clearly feels that better times are ahead.
Well, I think people, you know, their lives are probably very similar to a roller coaster with dips and swings and long, hard climbs. And if people can find within the church some assistance to cope with the swings and the dips and the climbs, then I think that's going to help them perform better when they go outside the church into the community. I feel that within this particular church and within this town and on this side of the city, I have the freedom to exercise a style of ministry that I like to think is happy and helpful and related to everyday living.
Can you give me an example of how in practical terms this works?
Well, now we're standing quite close to a lovely stained glass window, and this window was donated by the people of both communities in recognition of William Loughlin's singing within our city and in memory of his wife who lost her life in a tragic car accident. The money was raised at a concert attended by both communities and with artists from both sides of the religious divide. And on the Sunday that we dedicated this window, I had sitting here in church lots of Presbyterian, and there were Church of Ireland and Methodists, and I had our MP, John Hume, and his wife, and representatives from the council. So here is a way in which the two communities can quite happily come together. I encourage that. And this window is a symbol, I think, for the present and for the future, indicating the way in which music can overcome our man-made barriers and bring us together.
There's a certain amount of symbolism in the design of the window itself, isn't there? Could you explain that to us?
Yes. This window was designed locally in our city, which in itself is an indication of the talent that we have in the city. But you have, for example, you have the outline of First Derry Church, those columns. We have the outline of the Long Tower Catholic Church, so that in itself symbolises the two traditions. And then further up we have a Celtic cross, and the Celtic cross, of course, was in existence long before we had Catholics and Protestants. It goes right back to when we had no divisions at all. And then, of course, in going right around the outside of this window are circles representing the circles of life.
I can't imagine a window like that being put in a Presbyterian church 10 or 15 years ago, can you?
Probably not. But you know, isn't it good that we have changed? We're not changing for the sake of change. I think we're changing because we recognize that if we keep looking back to the past, there can be no future.
Behind the church is the old school building, which dates back to 1737. It too had become forlorn and dilapidated, but it's recently been renovated with the help of the Inner City Trust, a group that works hard to revive and preserve the historic centre of the city. Now, a new school building is almost completed. This is to be not only for children from the old school, but from the Cathedral School and Carlisle Road School as well. A new building that stands like a beacon of hope for the future. While many of the children and their teachers too will be sorry to leave the old school, they know it will be a worthwhile change.
We started off with 40 children and 2 teachers. Today we're sitting with 80 children and 4 teachers, plus 20 pupils in the playgroup. So people are starting to come back to this side of the river and having faith in it once more.
There aren't actually all that many children in the fountain area. That's part of the problem, isn't it?
At the moment, 30% of our children are from the fountain area and 70% of the children drive from the waterside area. It is hoped that whenever we have new housing and other amenities in the fountain, employment for the adults, that people will see it as a great place to live and want to be here.
The primary school does a splendid job catering for the needs of younger children. But what of the fountain's teenagers? As with many inner city estates, there's a degree of vandalism, of alcohol and drug abuse, but there's also a thriving youth club. Attached to St Columbs Cathedral, it was started soon after the Troubles began, originally with 10 members. Now it has nearly 80, and its efforts to build bridges across the community divide in Derry have been widely recognised and praised.
We actually won the Cross Community Award from the Western Education and Library Board, and that involved 6 of our older members going to Sweden with members of the Rosemount Youth Club, and we also sent 12 youngsters to Coleraine to the police community relations camp, and it was really good for them to get away out of the city during the summer when our youth clubs closed at that particular time.
How did they enjoy those 2 events?
Oh, they really had a ball. They formed a lot of new friendships. We then had 2 children who came over from Sweden and they stayed here in the fountain area. And even leading up to going to Sweden, you know, they just didn't meet up and go that particular day. They had class every week, getting to know one another.
I suppose actually a lot of your children didn't mix together at all with the other side during the Troubles, did they?
No, not at all. I mean, some of them didn't even know what a Catholic looked like, you know, and not till we started work with Chantala, Voluntary Youth Club, they hadn't even been out of this area into a Catholic area.
What do they say now that cheers your heart, that makes a difference?
Well, when we suggest doing cross-community programmes now, and I mean, at the minute we're organising a Youth and Unity service in the Cathedral, and they think it's great, you know, they don't mind mixing at all getting to know one another.
Gracious
St Columbs Cathedral is a strong focus for Protestant identity and culture within the old walled city. Beside the fountain, the cathedral and other church buildings contain fascinating historical records and artefacts from before the time of the siege.
This is the chapter house of the cathedral. The dean and chapter meet here for meetings, and it's also a museum, a small museum where there are artifacts of the siege.
Lots of things in glass cases.
And also Bibles here. The authorized verse of 1611 up here.
Oh, let's have a look at that.
That one is a pretty valuable book. This one is 1588. It goes back to the Armada, and we call that an Armada Bible.
What is this?
This is a facsimile copy of the Book of Kells. It reminds us of our roots in the early Irish church. Beautifully illuminated, as you can see.
Another reminder here, a very important one, St Columba.
Columba, of course, came to the city in the 6th century, and I suppose we could say founded the city and founded a monastery here. And the original church was down in the Long Tower site of the present Long Tower Church. But this church was built in 1633, and a little piece of stone from the Long Tower was put up here and embedded in our foundation stone here to keep the link with the past.
Right through to the 6th century.
Right away back to the 6th century in Columbus time.
Yeah.
St Columbs Cathedral, of course.
And who are all these eminent
These are
bishops?
Bishops, yeah, indeed, yeah. Bishops going right away back, as you can see, to 927. Our present bishop is Bishop Mahaffey, and of course our present primate, Dr. Eames, was bishop here, and his name is there.
There's a splendid picture of the cathedral, not looking like it is today, though.
No, there's no spire on it for a start, but that is the cathedral at the time of the siege.
But during the siege, it was like a fortress, wasn't it? It sheltered everybody.
It sheltered everybody, came into the cathedral. There was worship here in the cathedral during the siege. There were cannon, I think. Cannons were actually, not cannons of the cathedral, cannons at two ends were actually placed on the roof of the cathedral, I think. You can see the battlements there as well. People took shelter here, and they would have looked out from the roof of the cathedral down the foyle, hoping that the relieving ships would soon come to relieve the city.
Shut fast the gate, repair the wall, burnish the black cannon, kindle a naked light, day and night, illuminate truth, the one truth that appears clear and vivid, even in moonlight. Purpose is thrust into form. Derry's gates are shut firm. The walls of Jerusalem are raised up. The foyle wills itself a blue lagoon, complete with two ships a-sailing, always. Under sky blue skies, a crimson flag is cemented into the blue sky. Both hang over Donegal's undulating mountains, competing with white puffball clouds for what space is left around the bright heads of the red, white and blue defenders.
In the last couple of years, people have woken up to the fact that preserving the social history of the city is important, especially of the years that are still within living memory. The Fountain Estate has a great deal to remember with pride and affection. The establishment of a verbal arts centre has already done a lot to create an exciting archive of memories and events.
We have poets here, we have playwrights, we have novelists and short story writers, and all kinds of people interested in all aspects of the verbal arts.
When did it start?
We opened our doors in May of 1992, and since then we've been really very, very busy.
Very nice doors they are too,
yes.
And a wonderful staircase. What was this building?
This was an old school from the late 19th century until very recently, and then we came along and we've filled the place again full of laughter and light and humour. I think Derry has a fantastic webbed history of words and music, and I think that has been forgotten in some ways, and part of our job is to do a bit of cultural archaeology, if you like, to try and bring back into the common view that great wealth of story and song and poetry.
And there is really a common culture, isn't there? Is it a uniting factor too?
I think there is. The Fountain book, which I think you've seen, is a book that I think demonstrates that, because it goes back to the 1930s, 1940s, and the Fountain at that stage was a small community, but it was one that brought together Catholic and Protestant and the centre into a common cause, which was really supporting each other and enjoying life.
I told my papa to, a love for you, a love for me, dun, 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 dun. No more! I have never known nor tasted fear until all this sadness was shown by a tear. I hate this cold-blooded and savage war with its rules and ridicules. Its end seems so far. I hate all the suffering, the hurt and the pain. I hope that I never come back here again. We fight for our country and we all take great pride, but it's useless against all the screams and the cries. As I stand here alone with a gun at my side, I feel I must run, I must run, I must hide. But I am who I am, and that will always be. I live for my wife, for the children, and me. But continue on longer, I cannot. So I ended my life with one single shot. And as I drifted off into a sleep, I find the shots of the guns echoing deep in my mind.
One of Derry's traditional employers was the shirt factory, and most of the workers were women. In the 1930s and 40s, there were over 40 factories in the city, providing plenty of jobs for Protestants and Catholics alike, including many women from the Fountain. These factories weren't just mere workplaces, sewing collars and cuffs and sleeves. They stitched together the warp and weft of a divided community, and often made lifelong friendships. Now, most of the shirt factories have gone, and a whole generation of women are left with only fond memories.
Nobody said, "What are you?" The factory you went in and you sat down, and the machine you were put in, you got to know the ones next to you, and that was that.
Did you make firm friends because of your work together?
Yeah,
Still.
It brought you together?
Still have.
Still friends.
Good friends.
A lot of the people we worked with years ago.
What was the Fountain area like then?
Oh,
Great.
great.
Now, everyone was very friendly. You had good neighbours. If anyone was sick, the neighbours were around to see if they could do anything for you.
Have you been sad to see it disintegrating?
Fountain Street?
Yes.
Oh, they destroyed it,
They
changed
destroyed
it.
it. They didn't do the houses the way they were supposed to be built. They showed us the maps of what they were going to do, and it's a different place altogether from what we were shown. You know, at the start, they wanted us to see like what we had thought about it, and we thought it was a great plan. You know, the way they had planned out, and we thought it was great, but they didn't go by the plan.
Would you ever be tempted to come back again?
Oh, I'd go back to the Fountain if they just knocked it down and
Built it the way it was.
built it up the way it was.
The Salvation Army Tabernacle has a place in the life of the Fountain too. On the fringe of the estate, it runs regular services, a care and share shop, a small youth club, and is wholeheartedly involved in the spiritual and pastoral care of the community. The current man in charge, Captain Benson, has been in Derry for 2 years. As he has watched the peace process develop, his hopes for the future have risen.
Yes, indeed I do feel optimistic. I do believe that this peace accord has been the beginnings of something that could be a great thing in this city, breaking down of traditional barriers. We hope and pray that people will come together as one for the betterment of everyone in their own particular community.
You serve the whole of Derry, of course, but you're based on the edge of the Fountain Estate. Would you say that this is an area that has potential?
Oh yes, we do believe that. Obviously, as young families grow up, we're hoping that if they wish to, they can come to the Salvation Army and find a spiritual base there for themselves and for their children. We try to emphasize very much the community spirit. That means living together, praying together, and playing together.
Somehow I don't think the people of the Fountain would be particularly offended if I said that this sort of housing is a bit of an eyesore. The trouble was that when they tore down the old houses that were derelict in the 60s, what they put in their place was actually worse. Derry's present mayor is Jim Guy, who is deeply proud of the fact that he was born and raised in the Fountain. He's fought long and hard for funding from sources such as the European Community to tackle the task of improving its housing conditions. Now some much-needed cash is beginning to filter through from Brussels. How does he want it to be used?
Well, I think actually the flats that are here and the masonettes that are here need to be all revamped. They need a complete
They're very ugly buildings,
Oh, they are
aren't
indeed.
they?
And they're just a square concrete jungle, and that's what I don't like about them. So I feel that we have to spend a lot of money there to try and get that done and make the places habitable, acceptable to the people.
And that could happen within a couple of years if people
Indeed,
got there.
very much so, actually, with the
Pull
amount of money
themselves up
that's
by
been
their
suggested
bootstraps.
is for us, yes.
What else?
Well, I think also we have to provide a lot of play areas for the youngsters in the area. Hopefully we're going to attract into it. And I think actually over the period of time we haven't done anything to help the youngsters. We've provided no play area at all, local to the Fountain area, which is very necessary.
I wish I had a crystal ball to see what the Fountain's going to be like in, say, 10 years' time. If it isn't going to be a great deal better to live here than it is now, it certainly won't be for want of trying on the part of the people I've met who really care. I certainly wish them luck. That's all for this week. Bye for now.